Hello and welcome to the first of our World Cup previews. We've got one coming out next week ahead of England's first game, but this is a general World Cup preview. It's myself, it's Mikey McCubbin, it's Ollie Thomas. The World Cup is upon us, guys. Very, very exciting times. Quickly, Ollie, before we get into our various categories, winners, finalists, flops, etc., how are you feeling pre-tournament?
I'm very excited. I've seen a lot of people be like, I'm struggling to get up for this World Cup. I'm not in that category at all. I'm buzzing for it.
Good. Perfect guest to have on this show then. We're actually going to kick off with a little bit of a controversial start. We're going to talk about our flops of the tournament first up. Ollie, seeing as you're our guest, why don't you lead the way?
Oh, this might be a bit of a controversial one, but I'm going to go for Argentina as my flop. There's obviously been a bit of history over the past few tournaments with previous winners then getting grouped straight after winning it. And I just think that last time in Qatar felt like a real crescendo for that Argentina, Messi basically. And I just think they're not going to quite have that drive to go and get out of a group, which they should get out of in theory, but I think Austria are a really good team. And I've got a bit of a feeling about Algeria for some reason, not really sure why. So I think they're going to struggle a bit. I don't want that to happen because I really like Argentina, and obviously Messi's, I think, the best player ever, but I just think they might struggle a bit.
There is something as well when you've climbed the mountain multiple times, winning Copa Americas, they've kind of achieved everything that this group of players could do. And I know there's a new generation coming through as well, but I kind of agree with you. I'm expecting them to have a difficult tournament as well. Mikey, were you thinking along similar lines?
They were one of my options. I think there's a number of teams with flop potential at this tournament, and I imagine we've all done this in the build-up to this episode, and the tournament in general is like, filling out our bracket. And the bracket does some wild things, which we'll come on to as well with my dark horses, because they kind of came out of nowhere.
Ooh.
But Argentina were certainly one of my options. I think that's the thing. If they finish second in that group with Austria and Algeria, I think they would probably place Spain in the last 32.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I would definitely back Spain to beat them. If they end up on the side of the draw with England and Brazil, if they finish top of the group, they have a slightly easier run, but I think they'd still come up against Portugal in the quarterfinals. So it'd be difficult. Brazil as well, I think that, no matter where they finish in their group, they might have to play the Netherlands, Japan, Ecuador, or Norway to get through to the quarterfinals, where they'd probably play England. So yeah, there's a few teams there. Netherlands as well. I think that they could have a pretty tricky draw. I think they'd have to play Morocco or Brazil in the last 32. So all of those have flop potential. My flops, though, is a bit more based on the expectation of them. And I've gone for Portugal. I don't think they're going to struggle in their group necessarily. I think they'll probably comfortably make it to the last 16. But in the last 16, it looks likely that they'd probably play Switzerland. I think Switzerland are a bit of a dark horse. And I just think, given the hype around this Portugal team, which I think has been there for a long time now, I think back to the last World Cup, I think back to the Euros, they were quite heavily fancied. And I think on the basis of the fact that midfield is just so stacked, arguably the deepest midfield at the tournament, maybe the best midfield at the tournament. A lot of excitement around Vitinha and João Neves after winning that Champions League for the second time. João Neves just absolutely imperious in that final, wasn't he? Nuno Mensch obviously has that winning streak in him now as well. But I do just worry about their forward line. I think Ronaldo, coming off a win in Saudi finally this season. But I think, as we saw at the last World Cup, it can the story of Portugal's tournament can very quickly become all around about Ronaldo. And I just think, not that he's the only deficiency in that squad, because, he is a great goal scorer still. But if Portugal don't have an amazing group, or Ronaldo isn't scoring, or there's any kind of tension there, then if the story becomes about him, then I feel like it takes away from the team a lot. And if the defence isn't performing as it should, they were pretty leaky in qualifying. I think they were conceding over a goal a game. Then I feel like there's crumble potential there. And if they come up against a team like Switzerland, who are very, very consistent at tournaments, routinely make the last 16, the quarterfinals, routinely are more than the sum of their parts, were very, very impressive at the last Euros, I thought, probably deserved to beat England in the quarterfinals and make the semis. I can just see this Portugal team, crumbling a little bit. I don't know if that midfield alone can hold them together.
Okay, good use of crumble as well. We'll all be mentioning these teams at various points, I'm sure, in these categories as well. So we'll see what Ollie and myself think about Portugal in due course, no doubt. In terms of my flop, it feels very harsh because they've had 2 excellent World Cups back-to-back, being finalists in 2018, third place in 2022. But I do not expect a great tournament from Croatia, if I'm totally honest. I can hear my father-in-law, who's half Croatian, cursing me right now. But I think it's over, Greg. I think it's over for Croatia, if I'm totally honest. And look, if you look at how they did in the last Euros as well, in Euro 2024, they were in the same group as Spain, Italy, Albania, but they didn't win a single game. They conceded a 95th minute equaliser against Albania, lost to Italy, lost to Spain. I think this will be one tournament too many for them. There are 6 of their squad who are over the age of 30. There are 4 of their squad who are over the age of 34. Every reporter that you're hearing from out there at the moment is just obsessed, and rightly so, about the heat. I think they're going to struggle. I mean, it's one tournament too many for me for Modric, Perisic, Kovacic as well has had a difficult season at Man City with injury. There are some talented young players coming through, the likes of Baturina and Vuskovic at the back, who's their great hope defensively. But I do expect them to get through the group alongside England. And I don't think Ghana will cause them too many issues. But I'm thinking a round of 32 or a round of 16 exit for Croatia, which after their success of recent years is not really a disaster. And you just need that new generation to come through. So sorry, Croatia, I don't see you replicating your recent success. Okay, from flops, let's go to winners. Flip it immediately. Ollie Thomas, who is winning the 2026 World Cup?
Well, contrary to Michael's flop prediction, I have got Portugal winning it.
Nice.
To be honest, I change my mind on this like every day because I think there are some really, really good teams. Obviously, Spain are another one who I think will definitely be up there. England, hopefully. France too. I think France have a real range as to how they could do, and same with Portugal. I completely get your point of like if the conversation becomes dominated by Ronaldo, things could go really south really quickly. But equally, like if he starts the tournament well and Portugal play some good football, I just think they could really ride a wave. And I'm a sucker for a narrative, and I just think there's a part of me that thinks Ronaldo will know this is his last chance, really. Like this is it. He has to win this World Cup if he wants to be considered the greatest player of all time. And I could just see him, locking in and doing the things that maybe he hasn't done previously. I think their midfield is just so imperious as well, as you mentioned. I agree the front line is a bit of an issue. And you look at like, if they're going to be relying on, I don't know, like Rafael or Pedro Neto as wide threats, you're like, okay, that's not really like World Cup winning threat. But I think the experience they have around the pitch is so good, and I think the club connection with Vitinha, Neves and Nuno Mendes, as you said, will make a big difference. I think it will be close. I've basically just I've got to pick a team and be consistent with it, and I've said Portugal previously, so I'm going to go for Portugal. I think the storyline of Ronaldo is really strong, and I think storylines always dominate World Cups.
I guess they also beat Spain in the Nations League
and they were
last
really
year,
impressive in
which
that,
was great. So like, there is a bit of a winning mentality there. I struggle to see Bobby Martinez lifting a World Cup for some reason.
It would be possibly in spite of him, not because of him. I fear.
But then did you see Luis de la Fuente winning a Euros? There's been like random
kind of
tournament
different.
winners
I
before.
think it's different. I think it's. I don't know. I still feel like
think
that
he's a good manager,
Spain
Bobby
team.
Martinez.
I think he's good. And to be fair, actually, he did quite an underrated job with that Belgian golden generation. I was looking back, I was like, they kind of underachieved, but also I think they basically ended up going out to the eventual winners of the tournaments that they went out in. I think in the World Cup group they had Morocco and Croatia, who ended up getting the semi-finals, going out there. So I do feel for him in that respect. But
absolutely no one talking about Belgium in the build-up to this tournament.
I know,
by the way.
yeah.
No,
Well,
maybe
they should be dark horses finally after years of not being. But yeah, I think with the Ronaldo thing, I was thinking about it. Whenever he's been on like a personal mission, I feel like it doesn't necessarily shake out in the way that he wants it to. You know, like that peak Real Madrid team where he was the star. He did also have like an amazing team around him. When he went back to Man United, it ends up going wrong. goes to Saudi. It took a long time for him to win something there.
But do you not think he's got a more complete side alongside him at Portugal than he did at Man United, than he did at Juventus?
Probably.
I feel like this is the best team he's been a part of since those Real Madrid days.
And probably
it was a very different Ronaldo now, obviously.
Yeah, and probably the best Portugal team we've seen since the kind of mid-2000s as
gunning for that first World Cup.
Yeah.
There's a lot of narrative behind it.
There is a lot.
Mikey, who's your winner, though?
My winner is, again, there's so many options here, right? But
48 of them.
Exactly. I think it's going to be one of Spain or France, and I've gone with France. I just think out of every international team over the last 20 years, they've probably been the most impressive at World Cups, especially in the Deschamps era. If you think what they've reached 2 finals, Euro 2016, World Cup 22, where they almost won it. Obviously won the World Cup in 2018 as well. I think they've reached 2 semi-finals in that time as well. And the last Euros, they made the semi-finals despite playing pretty bad football. The World Cup win, and in 2022 they didn't really get going until the last stages, whereas I feel like this time round they could be blowing teams away from the word go. Just think, like, if you think about the players that have come into form in the last couple of years, Ousmane Dembele, I didn't realise just how many goals he scored for PSG in the last 2 years. 55 in 2 years, which is more than in his entire career.
Season, but whatever.
Michael Olise as well, like, just ridiculous numbers for
Hat-trick in the
Bayern
build-up.
Munich as well. Yeah, hat-trick against Northern Ireland, the mighty Northern Ireland. But they do have just their depth as well. Like Doué, Barcola, Cherki, Akliouche can all come off the bench. I imagine they'll all start a game at some point in this tournament in order to rest players as well. The midfield,
I think it looks weaker than a lot of people thought going into the tournament.
What the midfield?
Yeah. It's not as stacked as I kind of imagined it to be.
Yeah, and you don't have the talismanic Griezmann in the mix, which is a bit of a shame. Tchouaméni, Rabiot. Yeah, it's not the most stacked midfield, but I just think across the board, front to back, it's the strongest squad, and I think this World Cup is going to be won by a squad rather than a starting 11, just because of how long it is, the extra game, the heat. You can look at the fullbacks and think maybe they're a little bit weak there, not super world class, but then they do just have great depth there. You've got someone like Theo Hernandez, who came in at the start of the last World Cup, and that was a big part of them getting to the final in the end. Was him stepping in for Luca Hernandez. So I think there's just so many options there, I just think across a whole tournament, having someone like Deschamps there, who's been there, has beaten almost every team that France could come up against in previous tournaments. I think they'll get over the line.
It's a worthy shout. But I am going with Spain.
Yeah.
I think exiting the last 2 World Cups on penalties gives them a worse recent World Cup record than people actually remember. I think they've actually played some really outstanding football and struggled to score goals in the last few World Cups. Whereas in Euro 2024, they are drawn in a group with Croatia, who have just come off a great World Cup, finishing 3rd, Italy, who had won the Euros the previous time. Then they played Germany, then they played France, then they played England, and they beat all of them. And they beat them all in a style that we hadn't seen, actually, in terms of, it used to be the narrative was, tournaments are ground out, they're won in the dying moments or with a Harry Maguire header, whereas Spain just dominated from start to finish and ripped everyone apart and were the worthy winners against England in the final. I think Lamine Yamal's a better player than he was 2 years ago as well. I think the midfield depth has only got better as well. Pedri, Gavi, Rodri, Fabian Ruiz, Zubamendi. It's an absolute joke. The weakest position is probably actually the 2 centre-backs with Kubasi. But even at right back, you've got Marcus Llorente there. At left back, you're choosing between Grimaldo or Marc Cucurella. Like, how perfect is that if you want to change how you want to play tactically? They've got 3 goalkeepers that I think would probably start for every other nation.
Do you think that's a bit of a problem, though, the goalkeeper situation?
Potentially.
Because you kind of want to have a very clear number one. And if
it's never really been David Raya. It's always been Unai Simon. But Unai Simon has had by far the worst season out of David Raya and Joan Garcia. But Spain's squads, in previous years, when they did have issues, maybe more like 20 years ago in terms of squad harmony, the big issue was always the Barcelona and Real Madrid rivalry, whereas there's no Real Madrid players that have been picked at all.
Which is mad.
Which is mad.
Yeah.
My one thing about Spain is I think Nico Williams was so crucial at Euro 2024. He's had a poor season and isn't coming in the best form as well. But I think Oyarzabal, who's likely to start up front, I think he scored 11 in his last 10 for Spain, has really stepped up. I think he's now their 9th all-time top goal scorer. I'm backing Spain. But look, it's a very open tournament. Let's see how it goes. Right, next up, we've talked about a lot of teams so far, so we'll keep it a little bit more quickfire maybe on this category. Finalist. Who are Portugal beating for you, Ollie?
I have gone for France.
Okay.
I think I said there's a big range between what France could do and in terms of positive and negative, but I think they just have so much quality, and a lot of their attackers are really suited to international football. I think in terms of, to use a basketball phrase, they're ISO threats. Like, just give them the ball and they will beat most people in a one-on-one, and that just means you will go far in a tournament. So yeah, I've gone for France.
Okay, Mikey.
I've gone for England. I think England make the final.
Love the positivity.
Yeah. I'm surprised that neither of you went for England winner. Just thought for the vibes at least.
Ollie's Mr. England.
I know,
More so than I am.
I can't place England in this tournament at all, to be honest. I can't think of any latter stages without getting anxiety.
Yeah,
so.
I think it is going to be really tough, but I just think England, I think with Tuchel in charge, him and Ancelotti are the two best tournament managers at the World Cup. And, you know, if all goes to plan, it will be an England-Brazil quarter-final. I think England would edge Brazil in that quarter-final. Even though it's a bit of an away game, it would be in Miami, where there's a big Brazilian population.
England looks so much more balanced.
They are more balanced. And look, Ancelotti's no mug. If you know, Brazil are coming up against England in a quarter-final, I do kind of back him to make some tactical tweaks where it's not just like 5 players all out attacking against an England team which is like got maybe the most physical midfield in the whole tournament. But I just think England have better depth than Brazil. I think they've got a more balanced team on the day, and I think actually out of Tuchel and Ancelotti at this stage of their managerial careers, like no matter what competition they're in, I actually do back Tuchel to outsmart Ancelotti over the course of 90 minutes. I think he's a better in-game manager and a superior tactician as well. So I think England go through there. I mean, obviously they would have to face a few tough tests on the way there as well. Mexico, potentially in Mexico in the last 16. And then the semi-final, there's a number of teams that England could play. Actually,
Portugal.
Yeah. If that happens, then I back England just about to edge them out as well. But maybe I'm being overly positive. But I think the Tuchel factor is massive. I don't think this is the best England squad that we've had in the last
England shirt. This is
perfect.
This is a call to arms.
It's all right, mate. I've got my New York 94
nice.
T-shirt on, so
that is nice.
for the occasion. But yeah, I'm going to back him. I think Tuchel's a big factor. I quite like how ballsy he's been with the squad. I think actually England have performed pretty well under him over the last couple of years. I think there is a clear plan there, perhaps more so than we've seen, at least in the last couple of years of Southgate's tenure. And yeah, like I said, I think there's a lot of teams with flop potential as well, including England, but I feel like England will come through.
I like it. I am going for a Spain and Portugal final. I think Portugal, we've talked a lot about that midfield, but I actually think their defence looks really underrated as well. Diogo Costa conceded the fewest amount of goals in the entirety of Europe's top 7 leagues with FC Porto last year. I think he was an excellent addition in their last 2 tournaments as well, saving so many penalties, big moments delivering. João Cancelo on the right-hand side, Nuno Mendes on the left-hand side, best left-back in the world. Didn't necessarily have his best year this year, mainly due to injury, but absolutely phenomenal attacking threat. And then Ruben Dias and Gonzalo Inacio as the 2 centre-backs is a really good duo as well. I think they look very, very solid. Keeping the ball in the heat is going to be absolutely vital in terms of sapping your opponent. And João Neves, Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes. I don't think Bruno Fernandes has ever entered a tournament in such a good moment either. Bernardo Silva, full of motivation, trying to get a move to Barcelona, Atleti, wherever he's going to end up. I think it looks really good for Portugal to go far. And I do think if they came up against England in a semi-final, I would back that midfield, sadly, at the moment. Right, let's move on. Dark horses. We're going to a different category now. Yeah. Potentially a lot of different teams. I don't want to hear a Belgium. It has to be a proper dark horse. Mikey, who is your dark horse?
So I mentioned earlier that the bracket does crazy things.
Oh yeah,
and,
this was your wild moment.
I'm interested to hear this. Actually.
Yeah, and the bracket has done crazy things for me. I think, like I said, the fact that Portugal are going out early in my kind of predictions has probably swayed this somewhat. There's first of all, there's a number of teams I think that could do well. Like there's a number of teams that could flop. The way that this tournament shakes out and the different permutations, like I think, like aforementioned Switzerland, I think could be really strong. Senegal, really good tournament team. Norway, of course, with that attack, I think they're the top scorers in European qualifying. Turkey as well, I think they could have a really good tournament. But weirdly, Uruguay shaked out as a dark horse for me. And again, like it could go one or two ways, because the Marcelo Bielsa era as Uruguay has been topsy-turvy to say the least.
As you'd expect.
But he is a very experienced World Cup manager. He's managed 2 teams at the World Cup before. Argentina in 2002, where they did flop. Chile in 2010, where they gave a pretty good account of themselves. They're in a fairly easy group, aside from it being with Spain, because they got Saudi and Cape Verde there. So I backed them
on paper.
Yeah, I think I backed them to just go through in second place. Then they would need to play Austria or Argentina in the round of 32. So that would be an interesting one. If Austria finish top of their group, as I'm predicting them to, then they'd play Austria. I think a lot of it comes down to the style of play. If I'm being honest, you spoke about possession football. I also think teams that are really, really well drilled with their marking and their pressing, if they don't tire themselves out too early in the group stage, could be a real threat. Because I think, playing under that kind of intense pressure from a really well-drilled team could be really difficult as well. And Bielsa, of course, is the man-to-man pressing, marking guy. And this Uruguay team, I don't think anyone's really thinking about them at this stage. Like you say, Dukes, they come in really poor form. They I think they only won 1 game between the summer of 2024 and the summer of 2025.
Suarez said they were at breaking point.
Yeah, and I mean, and
wasn't picked.
Yeah, I mean, and they fell out. And
it's
only recently that Suarez made himself available again for selection, and sadly he won't be in the squad. And they're relying on Darwin Núñez, who's had a poor season in Saudi Arabia. So everything's pointing to Uruguay not having a great tournament.
But that's what a dark horse is.
That's what a dark horse is. Somehow my bracket had them getting to the semi-finals, beating Switzerland on the way, and then obviously they lose to the mighty England in the semis. But I just think there is one part of their squad which I think will be very strong, and it's that midfield. Ugarte, Fede Valverde and Bentancur will be horrible to play against in the heat. Valverde is at the peak of his powers. You don't want to allow him any space on the edge of the area either. Ugarte, massive point to prove this summer. Bentancur as well has a bit of a point to prove, and I think playing for their country, they're a different beast. And I think there's a few kind of underdog players in that team who I think could surprise us. Someone like Max Araujo on the left has been really, really good under Bielsa. Again, like Darwin Núñez, I feel like that could be a story. That could be a bit of a redemption arc for him at this tournament. We'll see.
Okay, I like it. That's proper dark horse.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming. You're full in the cupboard in the dark.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for that to be clipped out when they go out.
No, I like it. I like the bravery. Ollie, who's your dark horse?
So I originally had Senegal written down, but I don't know if they're dark horse enough, because they are good, and I think everyone knows they're good. Your point on the bracket was helpful, actually, because I had Austria in my mind, because I actually went to Netherlands, and I actually had Netherlands down as a dark horse as well. I feel like earlier they were viewed as someone who could struggle. I think they might have a really good tournament. So Netherlands/Austria. I watched both of them play against each other at Euro 2024 in the flesh, and Austria really impressed me because they played under Rangnick. They had this. It was like watching a Bundesliga team. It's kind of what you'd imagine, like the Red Bull style. And your point about the bracket is true. And you saying that Austria could play Uruguay.
That'd be a crazy game.
And you had Uruguay then going to the semi-final. I was thinking, like, well, I'd probably back Austria to win that. Therefore, Austria could get to the semi-final. Therefore, I will say Austria. But I also like the Netherlands as a shout. We were talking yesterday on our pod about there's some like mathematician guy who predicts the winners of the World Cup. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Yeah, and he's picked the Netherlands this year.
He's picked the Netherlands, but he's got the last 3 winners right, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's gone for the Netherlands.
shout.
I'm not sure. Especially now Timber's out of the World Cup, which is a massive loss for them. But they've
Great
got such a good
midfield.
Yeah, they've got a really good, and that's the thing. Their attack blows hot and
Daniel
cold.
Marlin,
Yeah,
coming in form.
Yeah.
But, and the thing is, they have in him, Gakpo, and Depay. They have 3 players who could be good, but could also be really not good. So you just don't really know. So maybe I'll go Netherlands instead. I also like the Netherlands. I'd like them to go far.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I had 2 as well, but my main one I'll come on to in due course. But I think Ecuador are worth a shout as well. Their form going into this is absolutely ridiculous. They're 19 games unbeaten. And you talk about sides being difficult to play against, organised. Hincapié, Pacho, and Joel Ordonez, who plays for Club Brugge, as 3 of their 4 defenders, and then Moises Caicedo in front of them. I think they'll be very difficult to play against as well. And I don't have as high hopes for the likes of Paraguay and Colombia and sides like that, although Munoz, obviously from Crystal Palace, and Luis Diaz is fully motivated for Colombia. But I think Ecuador might be the surprise package of kind of South America. But in Europe, I was on the same thinking as you. I think it'll be Austria.
Yeah,
nice. The only issue is that their main goal threat over the last 10 years has been Marko Arnautovic, which is probably a little bit of an issue going forward, but he's still delivering the goods for Austria. But their second main goal threat is Christoph Baumgartner, who had an amazing season for RB Leipzig. I think he got up close to 20 goals, and he's been ruled out of the tournament. That's a little bit gutting, so a lot of their attacking threat's gone. And if you had David Alaba in better form and fitness, I'd be more confident as well. But there's still Kevin Danso, who I think is a really underrated defender. Stefan Posch is a very good defender. But their midfield, Sievold and Schlager play together at RB Leipzig. There's Chukwuemeka, who's declared for Austria. There's Romano Schmidt, who plays for Werder Bremen, who's really creative. There's Konrad Laimer, who is an amazing utility player to have in there as well. I feel like I'm missing one out. Oh, Sabitzer, who's going to play off Arnautovic, and Florian Grilic, who can play as a defender, plays as a midfielder. Their midfield looks absolutely stacked. And I don't want to get too nerdy, but I looked into passes per defensive action in European qualifying, and Austria are the lowest. So they allow the fewest amount of passes for their opponents before they press. And that's just Ralf Rangnick all over. And as you say, sides coming onto you as well and pushing you and suffocating you from above with the weather and also on the pitch, I think could be a massive asset. So I've got Austria going quite far. I'm not sure whether I'm thinking like a semi-final, but I think they could really thrill along the way. And I actually thought they had a really good Euros as well. They scored 3 against, I think it was Portugal, they scored 3 against Poland, and then they lost 2-1 against Turkey in a really entertaining game. So Austria are my dark horses. Right, let's go to top goal scorer. Now, I have seen a lot of shouts for very different people in the build-up to this, but Ollie, who is your Golden Boot winner?
I wanted to go someone a bit more exciting than Kane, but I just haven't. I wanted.
You're on the Mikey train. You're backing the boys. I like it.
I thought, maybe there'll be some fun, random South American who bursts onto the scene. Ena Valencia, perhaps, for Ecuador, who somehow is still playing. But I just think Kane will. I just think he's in such amazing form, and I think a lot of England's goals will have to go through him. So
Did you see some of the England videos that they put out of him just ripping the net?
And him smiling after. The thing is with Kane, we have sometimes seen him lack that real killer instinct in a tournament. I know he's obviously got a lot of goals and he won the World Cup Golden Boot, but I don't know if we've seen the best version of Harry Kane at a major tournament for England in terms of goal scoring threat. But I think if we were ever to see that, it would be now. Because you'd hope after a Bundesliga season where, with all due respect to that league, it's not as physically taxing for him, he's a bit fresher than he might have been off the back of previous tournaments. So I've gone for Kane.
I like it.
Yeah, I've gone for the same.
Really?
Gone for the same. Yeah. I was. It is. Yeah, I don't know if there's. I was also thinking about Erling Haaland, but I think that largely depends on how well Norway actually do.
And they've got a tough group as well, so you can't he can't get those early goals in.
That's the thing. And Kane, if he's given even a half against Panama, could do. Could do what he did in 2018 and score a hat trick off the back of his heel. I just think he's also on penalties as well, and I think England have players in Madueke, Saka, Rashford, Gordon. They're all pretty good at winning pens. I feel like Kane always ends up getting 2 or 3 penalties at a tournament as well, and that adds up. So yeah, I've gone for him as well.
Backing our boy, captain, leader, legend. I have gone a little bit roguer, but not from a rogue team. The logic with Erling Haaland for me is quite flawed because there's an extra game this time around. If you get to the final, you're playing 8 games. The sides that get to the final or the semi-final have so many more opportunities to score. And you look at the top goal scorers last time, it was Mbappe, Messi, Giroud, and Julian Alvarez, who all made the final. And the only player that scored 3 goals that didn't get to a quarter-final was Enner Valencia. So I just don't think, unless Erling Haaland's Norway are getting to a quarter-final or semi, he's going to have enough of an opportunity to score enough goals to win a Golden Boot. So for all those people saying Erling Haaland, I mean, I might be eating humble pie in a month's time, but I just personally can't see it. And I have already mentioned him, but I think it's going to be Mikel Oyarzabal leading the line for Spain. If I'm backing them as my winners, it makes sense as well. I mean, with Lamine Yamal creating for him, who got 1 goal and 4 assists in the Euros last time, pretty much unplayable in the best competition in the world, in the Champions League, and a very good competition in La Liga. I think he's going to absolutely rip up this World Cup. So determined to win his first Ballon d'Or as well. And if Spain win the World Cup, he probably should have won Best Player of the tournament last time, but they gave it to Rodri, despite it clearly being Yamal who was the best player. I think he's got a very decent chance of winning the Ballon d'Or, because I do think your club's performances this year won't matter as much. It's really going to come down to who wins the World Cup. So Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams, even someone like Yeremy Pino coming off a bench, I think could have a really good creative tournament as well. And then Oyarzabal worked under De La Fuente at under 19, under 21 and Olympic level as well, and would have gone to the last World Cup, but he was injured. Then at Euro 2024, he was playing a little bit more off the bench for Morata, scores the winning goal against England, and I think he's going to start for Spain as their number 9. He's a really good finisher from just inside the box, and those cutbacks that are going to be coming mainly from Nico Williams' side, you would have thought, I think are going to be very, very dangerous for Oyarzabal. So I'm backing him as my top goal scorer. Best player, Mikey, who's your... What's it called? The Golden Ball
Golden
winner?
Ball, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm also going to be really boring, as you just mentioned, Lamine Yamal. I think I'm backing Spain to get to the semi-finals and get knocked out by France and go on to win it. I think by the semi-finals, I think the Golden Ball will be wrapped up, if I'm honest. I think this France team is amazing. There'll be a lot of star performers in there, but that attack is so stacked that I feel like, it's going to be a struggle for, say, Elise and Ousmane Dembele and Desiree Doué and Rayan Cherki.
Is Mbappe coming off though?
Mbappe, sorry, as well. I forgot about that. He hasn't actually featured in my thinking. But yeah, it's going to be. I feel like it's going to be a bit of a struggle for just one of them to really hog the limelight. Whereas in that Spain attack, yes, I think Oyarzabal, I'd back him to have a good tournament, coming in great scoring form. I think he's had his best scoring season for Sociedad as well. I think Yamal is going to be tasked with kind of carrying that attack, especially with Nico Williams not in quite the form that he was in going into Euro 2024. Definitely. I know he's had a good end of season, but then coming off a hamstring injury. Yamal coming off a hamstring injury as well, but we've seen him just bounce back. He's so young, he can just bounce back off injury so easily. He is just the most electric player in the world, and I think at the World Cup in particular, that really, really stands out.
I do think their group's a great one to really hoover up some momentum as well. Poor Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia, I really don't think they got a chance.
And I think, if you can really capture the imagination of audiences, especially in the US, where there are going to be a lot of people probably tuning in for the first time, and I feel like there is going to be I think there's going to be a really... World Cup fever is really going to take hold in the US, I think. I think someone like Yamal, the way that he announces himself properly to the world, because I know he announced himself to the world already with Barcelona and at the Euros, but I can just see him, being far and away the Golden Ball winner.
I do think there's an element of that, isn't it? Because of obviously being the first tournament since '94 in the US, both Adidas and Nike with their adverts went very star heavy, but picking out 4 or 5, their big players in their roster. I mean, Nike, everyone was in there, but I thought that was a real indication that they're trying to really push the key guys in this rather than make it less of a team effort, because American sport is often based around these 1-2 individuals. Either way, enough marketing chat, probably absolute rubbish. Ollie, who is going to be your best player?
I've gone for Mbappe. I do completely hear your point about the stacked nature of their attack, but I think just Mbappe's World Cup legacy already is so high, and I think he's just so well suited to these tournaments, and I think he'll be incredibly motivated. Because of his club season, even though individually he obviously scored goals, but he's not going in a very good place, I think, in terms of his image within football. And also he could very well leave this tournament as the top scorer in World Cup history, which is mental. And I just think I think that maybe a lot of those attackers who are in amazing form, but some of them are young and inexperienced at the top level, and maybe Mbappe will take on that mantle as the guy still and just come up with big moments. I just think I watched so much of France at the last World Cup, and I just was amazed by Mbappe in so many of the games. I just think he'll carry that on into this tournament.
I like it a lot. I didn't go particularly complicated either. Again, I'm sort of trebling down on Spain. I actually think Pedri, given the fact that he was injured for the semi-final and the final of Euro 2024, I think he's going to be really motivated. And he came off a great season with Barcelona. He's played really well in the warm-up games. I think he finished with 2 goals and 12 assists. And he's playing off a base of Rodri and probably Fabian Ruiz, or maybe his club teammate Gavi, maybe Martin Zubamendi. There's so many options in there. I think Pedri's going to absolutely run the show, so I'm backing him to be the best player. Breakout Star. Now, this is an interesting one. I think there's some great candidates. Ollie, who are you thinking about as the new star?
Maybe this isn't too breakout. I know I'm anticipating you guys having some crazy names who I've never heard of, so I'm prefacing that. I've actually gone for Antonio Nusa.
Nice.
Of Norway.
That's a really good shout.
Who didn't have a brilliant club season, but I think often, again, so much of my predictions for anything are just like vibes. I think people are really looking at Norway as a team who could do really well. And the focus of that is naturally on Haaland and Odegaard. But him and Oscar Bob as the wingers, I think, is really fun. And I think someone like Nusa, I've said it a lot, I think players like that suit international football. And I think maybe he'll be afforded a bit more space with the focus being on Haaland in that team. And I think, Norway will have a good tournament. So I'm backing him to be the player who, I think a lot of people obviously know who he is because he got a fairly big move to Leipzig a couple of years ago. But I think this could be one where he really announced himself. Although, I don't know. It also depends what you mean by breakout star, because one player I think will have a really good tournament, but does it count as a breakout star, is Madueke for England, because I think he will massively surpass people's expectations of him. Yeah. Does that make you a breakout star?
No, I like it. It's good to get another candidate in there for sure. Mikey, who was your breakout star?
I was thinking. I think Lennart Carl would have been like a huge one if he was fit. Again, like, anyone who follows European football will already know him because he's been Bayern's breakout star. But I think to the world at large, I think, and especially in a Germany team which I think lacks, real kind of established stars up front, I think he would have got minutes and he would have really. I think he would have shone, especially with Musiala coming back off an injury, Wirtz coming off the back of a fairly poor season at Liverpool. I was thinking Arda Güler as well, but then I realised actually Euro 2024 was kind of his breakout tournament for Turkey, but I think he'll have a great tournament. So I had to go a bit more obscure.
That's what you're here for.
Basumana Touré
Nice.
For the Ivory Coast. Now, he's probably not actually going to start because he's got Jan Diomande ahead of him in the pecking order. 5 goals and 9 assists in the Bundesliga for Hoffenheim last year. He's only 20 years old. Great dribbler, really fun to watch. And he's also got some quite good tournament experience for Côte d'Ivoire as well. He was coming off I think he came off the bench 3 times at AFCON, scored twice. One of those was a last-minute winner against Gabon in the group stage. Then he scored against Burkina Faso in the last 16. They eventually lost to Egypt in the quarterfinals. So, but he's at a young age he's already got that kind of experience, and I think if they're going to get out of the group and potentially get to say the last 16 and cause a bit of an upset, then they will need him coming off the bench late in games. And I mean we've kind of spoken about it already, but in a tournament like this, long tournament, hot conditions, being able to bring on really exciting attackers late in games who aren't that much of a step down really from who they're coming on for. I think could be really, really useful. And I didn't realise, but he was linked with Liverpool earlier in the season as well. So clearly they're looking at that kind of profile, Bundesliga, young wingers. I wonder whether Liverpool go back in for him if they can't get Jan Diomande.
Yeah, a little club teammate dynamic there, a little bit of a Rashford-Gordon similar situation. I agree with you about Ivory Coast frontline. I mean, I was looking at it yesterday. They've got Evan Guessin, Bonny from Inter Milan, Amad Diallo, Nicola Pepe, Basumana Touré, Jan Diomande. That is so fun.
Yeah.
So fun. And Basumana Touré, one of the quickest players. He's actually not one of the quickest players. I think he was 3rd quickest in the Bundesliga last year. I was looking at it earlier, but he's one of the quickest to watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
His movement it's bizarre. He's absolutely rapid to watch. I also went for a Bundesliga player in Ibrahim Maza for Algeria, who I think could have a really massive tournament. He has been linked already with Arsenal. He's been linked with Man City. There are a number of clubs watching him. He joined Bayer Leverkusen from Hertha Berlin last summer, amongst that huge change at Bayer Leverkusen with Xhaka leaving and Wirtz and Tah, and although that exodus, he was one of the few that really hit his straps at Bayer Leverkusen. He ended up on a creative level not far behind Harry Kane, playing in central midfield. He's very small, he's very diminutive, but he really holds his self well. He's very physical, he can glide past people, really fun to watch. And you talk about lopsided sides, Algeria also have a little bit of this as well. So on the left side of their defence, they've got Nouri and Bensebaini, and then there's Mazza in midfield. And then going forward, there's Guiri and Mahrez are still there. And then this guy Hadj Moussa, who I really like from Feyenoord, who plays on the right, who I want my side Sunderland to ideally sign. So I've got plenty of vested interest in Algeria, and I can't wait to watch them. So Mazza, my player to watch at this tournament. Right, the final category, guys, does sound quite similar to flop, but it could be a team, it could be a player. It's one tournament too many is the category. So it's basically another flop. But have you got a niche suggestion or not niche suggestion, Ollie, for one tournament too many?
It's not niche. It is with a heavy heart. I'm saying this. I've literally written with a heavy heart on my notes. Neymar.
Yeah.
When he got selected,
You're not feeling it.
I was buzzing. And
King of vibes.
Yeah. I think everyone wanted him or wants him to have a good tournament, right? Because I think he's one of the most underrated. Despite him being so rated, I still think he's underrated in terms of what he can do. And if England don't win the World Cup, I would love nothing more than him to lead Brazil to a World Cup and he can have that legacy, but I just don't think it will happen. I can see him honestly barely playing. And I think considering how much talk there's been about him going into the tournament and how Brazil's squad is probably lacking compared to previous ones they've had, and it feels like, what if Neymar just kind of rediscovers his form? I just don't think it will happen. And I to be clear, I don't want that to happen. I want him to have an amazing tournament. I just think it will be like, why did he even go?
It will be interesting. That generation, Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, do any of them have a good tournament?
Yeah.
Is it just one too many for all of them?
Possibly.
Yeah. That wasn't my suggestion, but it's interesting to think about. I mean, Messi's coming in great form for Inter Miami, but it's a different story, isn't it? Mikey, who was yours?
Yeah, I probably echo you. I didn't really have like a clear idea coming into this, but I think, yeah, both this Brazil team in general and Argentina, I think there's not actually a huge amount of expectation on either team, aside from Argentina being world champions, squad-wise, for them to be touching the likes of Spain and France. But I do think particularly like Argentina's squads is pretty old. Brazil, I think this is the first time they're coming into a tournament not among the 2 or 3 favourites, and it does feel like 2018 or 2022 was when that group of players were at their peak as well. I just look at Brazil and, aside from Gabriel in that back line, most of their back line is past their peak. I think most of that midfield is past its peak as well.
They had a shocking qualifying.
Very lucky to get even into the tournament. So despite them having Ancelotti again, maybe it's one tournament too many for Ancelotti. Maybe. Who knows? Because I mean, like he's had an amazing managerial career, of course, but most top managers, they have about a 10-year lifespan of being at the very top of the game. Ancelotti's been at the top of the game for 2 decades, pretty much, especially in terms of his Champions League performance. But maybe this kind of what felt like a match made in heaven between him and Brazil, maybe it won't be the one.
Fair. Just quickly, before I do mine, Ollie, thinking of another one that I didn't actually suggest. Do you have any concerns about John Stones potentially starting for England, given the little amount of football he's played?
Yeah, it does feel like a bit of a weird... I get why Tuchel is favouring him, or it sounds like he's favouring him, because that backline on paper, as much as I rate Guehi as a Palace fan, and I think Konza has been really good for Villa and also was really good for England against Switzerland in Euro 2024, on paper that doesn't look like a World Cup winning centre-back partnership. And does that mean anything? Perhaps not. But Stones and Guehi feels a lot more comfortable. But I agree, like in the heat against like physical teams, quick attackers, you do think like, is that really needed? And the comparison with Maguire, where Maguire played so much more football this season, and for England has been as good, nearly as good at least, as John Stones. I personally probably wouldn't have even taken Stones, But if he can play to the level that we know he can, and if he's got people around him, like let's say, he's got Jed Spence near him and Gahey, you've got two very mobile defenders there. Perhaps you can mask it, but yeah, it definitely could be one tournament.
Yeah, fingers crossed that it's not. Fingers crossed that it's not. In terms of one tournament too many, we've kind of already touched on them, and I think they were actually Ollie's flop, but I'm going with Argentina as well. I think having reached the pinnacle in the last few years, Copa Americas, World Cup, I can't see them replicating it, particularly with the form of some key individuals in their defence. And in goal, and Emi Martinez coming in with an injury. Cristiano Romero's had a bad season. Lisandro Martinez has barely played. Tagliafico's had a really bad year at Lyon. Molina was on the bench for Atletico Madrid. McAllister was dreadful this year for Liverpool. Enzo Fernandez, I think he's going to be quite distracted. I'm just not feeling Argentina. And unlike a lot of sides, they have two elite number 9s, which does help them out. Obviously Messi behind, but Lautaro Martinez and Julian Alvarez to pick between them is kind of ridiculous riches to have. But I'm not feeling their midfield and defence as I normally would. And I think they'll be on the same side of the draw as England and Portugal. And I do back both of those sides were it to come down to a match-up to beat them. That's my thoughts at the moment. But guys, that is the thoughts of all of us on the predictions for the 2026 World Cup. But the great thing about predictions is you can get involved too. We can all be wrong together. Get in the comments about your winners, your finalists, your top goal scorer, your best player. Get your thoughts in there. Massive thank you to Ollie Thomas for coming on today's show. Ollie, if people have enjoyed your thoughts, which they no doubt have, where can they find you?
At TalkCPFC on all socials, and check out the Nearly Men podcast as well.
Please do. It's a very good podcast indeed. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. We've got a England preview coming out next week. But for now, just enjoy the footy. See you in a bit.